I never imagined I'd have to announce my husband's death through a declined phone call. But that morning, with October's early chill settling over Denver, I called my mother, my voice hoarse with shock and grief, and she simply said, "Sophia's cutting her birthday cake. Can you call back later?" I'm Serafina Moore, 34, HR manager at a mid-sized logistics company in Colorado. I'm also the mother of an 8-year-old girl named Lily, and I became a widow after a single call from the hospital. If you've ever found yourself forced to choose between your dignity and your family, leave a comment, hit like, share this story, and follow the channel so you won't miss what's ahead. Evan, my husband, died at 11:23 a.m. from a massive heart attack during a client meeting. I was home, about to toss salad greens for lunch, when the phone rang. Amanda, his assistant, sounded shaky, every word breaking. "Serafina, Kevin collapsed. They're taking him to Swedish Medical Center." I dropped the knife, hands still full of lettuce, and bolted to the car without my wallet. I only had time to yell to my neighbor, "Lily's at school. Can you pick her up for me?" Ellen looked at me, didn't ask a thing, just nodded. I drove like I'd lost my mind, ran red lights, squeezed into emergency lanes. My lips kept moving, whispering, begging, "Please don't take him. Please give me more time." I got there 15 minutes later. They didn't let me in right away. A nurse came out, gentle but firm. When the doctor arrived, his voice was too calm for what he said. "We did everything we could. He didn't make it." Didn't cry. I stared at the space in front of me and just said, "I want to see him." Evan lay on the bed, still wearing the gray button-up I ironed the day before. His face looked like he was just napping. But his chest, the part I leaned against every night, was still. I reached out to touch his cheek. It was still warm. I stood there, hand on his chest, waiting for any movement, any breath. Nothing. People asked me all kinds of things. Cremation or burial, what kind of service, what music he liked. I couldn't answer right away. I kept thinking about that morning. Kevin flipping dinosaur-shaped pancakes, grumbling about running out of real maple syrup. "Make sure you get the good kind this time, not that fake sugary stuff." That was the last thing he said to me. I got home around dusk. Lily was still at Ellen's. I needed to be the one to tell her. I drove to the school, my hands on the wheel, completely numb. When Lily climbed into the car, wearing her owl-shaped backpack, she asked as soon as she buckled in, "Why didn't Daddy come to my art show?" I pulled over. I couldn't keep driving. I turned around, took her tiny hand, swallowed hard. "Sweetheart, Daddy got really sick at work today. His heart stopped beating. The doctors couldn't save him." Lily stared at me. "So, Daddy's not coming back ever?" I nodded. She was quiet for maybe 3 seconds. Then she screamed, not a cry, but something torn and raw, like something inside her split wide open. She threw herself into my arms, clawed at my shirt, clung to my shoulders, sobbing, "I just want Daddy. I just want Daddy." I carried her home and let her sleep in Kevin's shirt. It still smelled like his aftershave. She clung to it, her eyes swollen from crying. I sat on the bathroom floor, hugging my knees, and for the first time I cried like I couldn't stop. I needed my mom. I called. It rang 5 times before someone picked up. On the other end, her voice came through over cheerful music. "Sarah, now's not a good time. Can you call back? We're at Sophia's birthday party." I tried to steady my voice, but it cracked. "Mom, Kevin's gone. This morning. He died from a heart attack at the hospital." I heard her pause, then, "Oh my, are you sure? Maybe there's been some mistake?" I inhaled slowly, spoke each word clearly. "I saw him. He's gone." Then came the excuses. "I'm so sorry, but it's Sophia's 40th birthday today. The whole in-law side is here too. Can you manage tonight? I'll come by tomorrow." I hung up. A few minutes later, my father called back. I held the phone, hoping to hear something, anything, warm. But the first thing he said was, "Did Kevin have full life insurance coverage? You should contact the company right away. Don't delay the paperwork." I set the phone on the table like it had just sparked. That night, I held Lily in the dark. Every now and then, she'd sit up and ask, "Do you think Daddy's cold, Mommy?" Then fall back asleep in my arms. I told her stories about Kevin, how he learned to play soccer just so he could coach her team, how he teared up the first time he heard her laugh. I thought the worst had passed, but I didn't know that was only the beginning. 4 days later, we held Kevin's funeral. It was a Saturday, early October, and the sun was out, with that oddly bright, tasteless light streaming through the car window as Lily and I pulled up to the funeral home in a quiet corner of Aurora. Lily wore a soft blue dress. Daddy said I look most like a princess in this color. I braided a little section of her hair across her forehead, the way Kevin always did for birthdays and school festivals. She sat quietly in the back seat, clutching the teddy bear Kevin once bought at a gas station on a road trip. I looked at her in the rearview mirror, wondering how this small person was holding up at all. Kevin's coworkers were the first to arrive, men who'd mostly seen him in suits under fluorescent office lights, but that day, they wiped their eyes and told Lily little stories, how Kevin once gave up his lunch for an intern, or printed out park maps to help an elderly client, things I'd never known, but that somehow sounded just like him. As for my parents and Sophia, the ones cutting birthday cake a few days ago, they texted to say they'd be late because of traffic. The message came while I was arranging flowers next to Kevin's photo. I looked at the screen, then tucked the phone back into my purse without answering. They walked in after everyone had taken their seats. My mother's perfume overwhelmed the room, too much lavender, masking the fresh flowers. She gave me a limp hug and whispered, "Sophia tried on 3 dresses before settling on this one." I nodded, didn't say a word. My father shook hands with people like he was at a networking event. Saw Amanda, Kevin's assistant, sitting in the second row, her eyes quietly observing us. She tilted her head ever so slightly when she noticed Sophia checking her phone over and over again. That look wasn't judgmental. It was more like a quiet confirmation of what everyone already sensed. Marcus, Kevin's younger brother, sat beside Lily, holding her hand through the entire service. He had just flown in from Oregon and still had dark circles under his eyes from the red-eye flight. When I stepped up to speak, I caught his gaze, steady, quiet, but full of emotion. I didn't think I'd be able to talk, but when I saw Lily sitting there, those eyes so strikingly like Kevin's, my feet moved toward the podium on their own. I talked about Kevin, how he always made me taste the strangest things at restaurants, even though he knew I hated surprises, about his obsession with real maple syrup and his irrational hatred of cilantro. I told everyone how he would set aside one evening each week just to watch the tiny video clips of Lily learning to walk, to talk, how he'd laugh like it was his first time seeing them. I ended with, Kevin always put family first, always. I glanced at the front row, where my mother was adjusting her necklace and my father was checking his watch. No one said a word, but the contrast was blinding, like someone had shined a spotlight on it right in the middle of a funeral. The reception afterward was held at my house. I hadn't planned anything elaborate, but Kevin's coworkers brought trays of food and old friends of mine quietly washed dishes and rearranged chairs. Meanwhile, my mother and Sophia sat silently on the couch, accepting condolences like they were the hosts. They didn't lift a hand, didn't ask if I needed help. Lily was in the kitchen with Kevin's mom, Diana. She was making small sandwiches, carefully pressing cucumber slices into the bread and telling Lily how Kevin, in 3rd grade, was so terrified of thunderstorms he used to hide under the table. Kevin's dad stood by the buffet, pouring drinks for guests like it was his duty. Not a single complaint, not a single side glance. When people started leaving, my parents were the first to go. My mother called from the doorway, "I'll call tomorrow. Remember to rest." Sophia breezed past me like a draft of cold air. My father turned around, patted my shoulder lightly, like signing off. I nodded and looked away. I didn't see them out. That evening, I washed a few borrowed tablecloths from the neighbors and packed leftovers into the fridge. Lily was asleep. Marcus sat at the dining table, still holding a glass of untouched tea. He didn't speak. Neither did I. Just the sound of the dishwasher humming behind us. I sat down beside him, eyes fixed on the empty space at the table, where Kevin's hand used to rest, tapping his index finger while he thought. I didn't know what would come next, but it felt like something was surfacing. Not from the grief, but from those who had vanished when I needed them most. I thought the funeral was the end. Turns out, it was only the warm-up. 2 weeks after the service, I was sitting at the kitchen table, holding a cold cup of coffee, insurance paperwork scattered everywhere, when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents. My dad wore a tucked-in polo like he was heading to a golf game. My mom held a large purse, checking her compact mirror every few seconds. I opened the door, said nothing. "We came to see how you and Lily are doing," my mom said, stepping inside before I could respond. "Lily's at school? Good, that makes it easier to talk openly." I nodded and walked to the kitchen to make coffee, my hands moved by muscle memory, pouring water, pressing the button, grabbing 3 mugs, then paused. Why 3? Kevin used to like a pinch of cinnamon in his. I still wasn't used to needing only 2 cups. When I brought the tray out to the living room, my dad was inspecting the sound system Kevin had installed back in August. He ran his hand along the speaker like he was evaluating a new car. "Kevin had good taste," he said, settling into a single-seater. My mom had already claimed the couch, legs crossed, holding her cup like she was at a parent-teacher conference. The first few minutes were casual, talk of Lily, school, neighbors, and a few forgettable stories I couldn't even recall afterward. Then my dad cleared his throat. I knew immediately we'd arrived at the real reason for their visit. "Serafina," he said, placing his cup perfectly on the wooden coaster, "we wanted to talk about your financial situation." I stared back. My situation? My mom chimed in, soft voice, eyes locked on me. "You're adjusting to life without Kevin and, well, families, sometimes need to support each other." I stayed silent. They exchanged a glance, then my dad sat straighter. "We're going through a rough patch," he said. "Our retirement fund took a hit with the market recently, and you know how healthcare costs are." The silence stretched so long I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. "You want us to be direct?" my mom said impatiently. "We were thinking, with Kevin's job and the life insurance payout, you could help a little. We're family." I leaned back in my chair, coffee still untouched. "You're asking for how much?" My dad leaned in slightly, like negotiating a deal. "We thought 50% of the insurance would be fair. You'd still have enough to live comfortably and raise Lily." I didn't smile, but the corners of my mouth dropped of their own accord. 50%, I repeated, from the people who didn't console me when my husband died, who arrived late to the funeral, who are now sitting in his house asking for a cut. "Serafina, don't get emotional," my dad frowned. "It's just logic. We supported you your whole life. You didn't get here on your own." My mom softened her voice, like coaxing. "We paid for college, helped with your first apartment, raised you for 18 years. Is it wrong to ask for a little something back?" I set my cup down, firm enough for the coffee to lap the rim. "Kevin died. I didn't win the lottery. My husband died. And you're sitting here talking about profit." "No need to yell," my dad said flatly. "Kevin knew his risks. He should have taken better care of himself. Now you need to share. Fairly." That heat hit like a sharp nail. A chill spread from my fingertips to my shoulders, and I couldn't tell if I was shaking from rage or heartbreak. I stood up. No yelling, no flailing. I just said, "Get out of my house." "You can't be serious," my mom stammered. "I said get out," I repeated, louder this time, not because of the request, but because of how you spoke about Kevin, about me, about Lily. They didn't argue. My mom grabbed her bag. My dad muttered something about being unbelievable. I opened the door. They stepped out, footsteps softer than the autumn wind on the porch. As soon as the door closed, I leaned back against it, my shoulders trembling like someone was knocking from inside my chest. That afternoon, Lily climbed into the car after school, eyes searching mine. Grandpa and Grandma came, didn't they, Mom? I nodded. Yeah, I'd talked to them for a bit. Was it about Dad's money? I turned fully toward her. Where did you hear that? I heard Grandpa talking to Uncle James at the funeral. They said you'd get a lot of money because Dad's gone. Is that true, Mom? I lowered my head. There is life insurance money, yes, but you know what? I'd trade every single dollar of it just to have Dad back. Lily looked down at her hands, went quiet for a moment, then nodded. Me too. I don't think kids understand everything, but sometimes, in moments like these, they see more clearly than we do. And I knew it wasn't over. Not with my parents, not with the way they used the word family like it meant obligation, because the next morning I got an email from my sister. Subject line, "We need to talk, now." I opened Sophia's email on my phone while waiting for Lily after school. Sitting in the car, the window cracked just enough to let in the early winter breeze off Sloan Lake. The subject line was plain. We need to talk, now. The body was shorter than I expected and colder than I was ready for. I don't want things between us to get any more tense. Mom and Dad are just trying to do what's fair. You getting angry made everything more awkward for everyone. I think we should meet and talk this through. I suggest Sunday at Mom and Dad's place. 2 p.m. No asking how I was. Not a single word for Lily. As if Kevin had never existed. As if grief was just a dash between two budget items. I didn't respond right away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Lily running out of the school building, her purple scarf, the one I knitted, floating behind her. She hopped into the back seat, grinning like nothing had changed. Mom, I got an A on my essay today. I turned and smiled. Can't wait to hear all about it, but first, I need your help with something this afternoon. Lily tilted her head. What is it? I didn't answer immediately. That evening, while she was coloring at the table, I told her about Sophia's email. Not the details, just that her grandparents wanted to talk, and I had to think carefully about it. She stayed quiet for a moment, then looked up with a calm, steady voice that stopped me in my tracks. I want to come with you. I set my tea down. Sweetheart, you don't have to be involved in all this. I know, she replied, eyes steady. But if it's about family, then I'm part of it too. And I want to say something about Dad. I wanted to say no, but the way she sat there, hands folded, eyes focused, reminded me of Kevin in serious meetings. Quiet but grounded. Present. Okay, I said. What did you want to say? I'm not sure yet, she shrugged, then glanced toward the laptop. But I think I need to prepare. Later that night, after I tucked her in, I peeked back into her room. She was writing something with colored markers on a large sheet of paper. I didn't ask, just dimmed the lights and left a soft night lamp on. Sunday morning came with low clouds and a quiet wind whispering down the street. Lily wore a dark blue knit dress and short brown boots Kevin had given her for her 8th birthday. In her hands, she carried a manila envelope. What's that? I asked, buckling her seatbelt. Just something I want to give Grandma and Grandpa, she said calmly. But don't worry, it's not money. Her tone was so composed I actually laughed. Soft, but real. We arrived at my parents' house right at 2. The maple trees lining the walkway had lost most of their leaves, a few clinging on like they weren't ready. I rang the bell. My mother opened the door, dressed like she was headed to church. White blazer, gray heels. She smiled politely, her eyes flicking over Lily. Come in, everyone's waiting. The living room was more crowded than I expected. Besides my parents and Sophia, my dad's older brother James was there with his wife, Laura. I nodded and pulled a chair for Lily to sit beside me. My dad began, voice formal like a boardroom presentation. We're not here to argue. We're here to work out a fair resolution. My mother chimed in, her voice smooth. Sarah, we know you're under a lot of pressure, but families should support each other. And Sophia's having a tough time right now, you know. I looked over at Sophia, form-fitting dress, full makeup, dark red nails. She gave me a faint smile. Actually, my dad continued, we've prepared a proposal. Nothing unreasonable, 50% of the life insurance for us and 15% for Sophia so she can finish her art project. He pulled a printed sheet from his pocket. There were percentages, bullet points, even a column titled Reasonable Usage. I skimmed it, then set it on the table. So, I said, 65% of what Kevin worked for all his life, the money he clearly designated for Lily in his will, is being labeled fair distribution? You still have 35%, my mother said. That's plenty to live on without rushing back to work. Lily didn't move, but I noticed her grip tightening on the envelope. All right, I said, turning to her. Lily, if you're ready, now's the time. Lily nodded, stood up, and walked to the center of the room. Her voice was even and clear. I have something for Grandma and Grandpa. She opened the envelope and pulled out a large sheet. Everyone fell silent. At the top, in blue marker, were the words, I invoice love and support. Underneath were bullet points. Comforted Mom when Dad passed, $0, none given. Help me sleep after the funeral, $0, none given. Called to check if I was okay, $0, none given. Acted like grandparents, priceless, but never done. At the bottom, in bold, Umer, $0, this is what you actually did. No one spoke. My dad stared at the page, eyes fixed. My mother exhaled, lips pressed tight. Sophia sat frozen, like a play had ended and she wasn't sure what part she played. Lily folded the paper, placed it gently on the table, and returned to her seat. Her face was astonishingly calm. I just wanted everyone to know, she said softly, that I miss Dad. And I know who loves me, and who doesn't. I knew. Nothing else needed to be said. The meeting continued, in silence. I stood, took my daughter's hand. We believe we've said all we needed to. And we left the house I'd grown up in, but no longer belonged to. I'd thought Lily came just to listen, but it turned out she was the only one who made the entire room go silent. I never imagined the truth would come from a piece of paper and a few colored markers. That afternoon, I didn't drive Lily straight home. Instead, we looped by the small park next to the city library. She sat quietly in the back seat, clutching the folded envelope against her chest like it still carried something important inside her. I said nothing. Just found an empty bench near the fountain where Kevin used to take Lily to watch ducks when she was barely walking. Willie sat beside me, her legs swinging gently at the edge of the bench. You doing okay? I asked, eyes fixed on the lake. She nodded. I don't feel sad, just lighter. I nodded too. Me too. When we got home, I made tea. Lily pulled out her coloring book, but set it down after less than 5 minutes and headed upstairs. I heard her door close. Not loud, but firm. A few minutes later, the soft scratch of colored pencils started again, steady and slow. I wiped down the kitchen counter, sorted through some unopened mail, and stopped when I saw the familiar cream envelope with Kevin's handwriting. For Serafina. Open only when needed. I sat at the bar stool, slowly tore the edge open. Inside was a handwritten letter, the neat, familiar script so vivid, I could almost hear his voice in each word. If you're reading this, it means the thing I always thought was just overthinking actually happened. I don't want you to panic or hurt more. I just want you to know. I've prepared everything. I updated the insurance terms and my will after that health checkup early this year. Everything is in your name and Lily's. But there's more. I set up a separate trust just for Lily, only for tuition and essential needs. I didn't want anyone else to have access. And something important. I didn't tell you this before because I didn't want to upset you. But your dad, Brad, came to see me twice, asked to borrow money, called it a family investment. I declined, gently, but I saw the look in his eyes, so I took extra precautions. Don't let them touch what you and Lily rightfully deserve. I finished reading and set the letter down like it had suddenly burned hot in my hands. If Kevin had known, he never told me, never complained, just quietly protected us, his way. Like how he used to wake up early every Sunday to bake banana bread for Lily, or how he always stood between me and the wind when I shivered in the school parking lot. I picked up my phone and called Tomas, our family attorney, and one of Kevin's old friends. I just read Kevin's letter, I said. He mentioned a separate trust for Lily. Can you look into that for me? Thomas set a meeting for the next day. I brought both Kevin's letter and a copy of the will. His office was on the 6th floor of a red brick building near downtown Louisville, Kentucky, the city Kevin and I had moved to 4 years ago for the better weather and more manageable cost of living compared to Denver. Thomas read the letter, then smiled. He really did think ahead. The Lily Moore Education Trust is fully registered, and it's locked down until she turns 25. It can only be used for school or medical care. No one, not even your parents, can interfere. I exhaled, a mix of relief and ache in my chest. I don't think they're done yet. Then you'll need to prepare, Thomas said. And one more thing. If they come back, you might want something in Kevin's words. It might not hold legal weight, but it could be enough to stop them cold. That night, I told Marcus everything over a video call. He was in Oregon, getting ready to move back to Kentucky to help me care for Lily for the next few months. And knew about my dad asking for money, Marcus asked, his voice lower. Did. I nodded. But he didn't tell me. Maybe he wanted me to still believe in them. Marcus looked at me through the screen for a long second. Kevin always said that if anything ever happened, I was to be there for you and Lily. I just didn't think it'd come so soon. I didn't answer. My throat tightened when I saw Lily step out of her room, holding up a fresh drawing. I made another one, she said, showing me, for Uncle Marcus. The picture showed 3 figures standing in a field, holding hands. Me, Lily, and Kevin. Though Kevin stood off a bit, behind them, under a bright sky. A small line of text was written above him. Dad is always watching over us. Marcus looked at it through the screen, lips pressed tight. I'm printing that and hanging it in my office. I glanced at the clock. 8:42 p.m. A message from my mother arrived right on cue. You should reconsider. Your father is very disappointed. I shut off the screen, didn't reply, because I was beginning to understand. If they came back next time, it wouldn't be with words. And sure enough, 2 days later, I received a letter by express mail. The subject line, Request for Reconsideration of the Estate of Kevin Moore. It arrived Wednesday morning, buried among junk mail and old magazines, looking like nothing, but weighing heavier than all of it. On the envelope, printed in bold block letters, from the law office of Preston and Hale. In the top left corner, a blue ink signature, Bradley T. Moore, my father's name. I opened it in the kitchen, my hands still dusted with flour from making star-shaped pancakes for Lily, her favorite on test-free mornings. By the 3rd line, I dropped the page onto the counter. The flour left pale smudges across the paper. They were requesting a review of Kevin Moore's estate inheritance, particularly items affecting the interests of the direct family line. My father had signed as the formal petitioner. No details, just vague language expressing concern over the clarity of recent financial adjustments made prior to Kevin's passing. I called Thomas immediately. Take a breath, Sarah, he said after I read the opening paragraph aloud. This isn't a lawsuit, it's a signal. They're testing to see if you'll fold. I'm not folding, I said, gripping the edge of the counter, but I'm angry. Then hold on to that anger, he replied, voice low but firm. I'll send an official response letter. From now on, all their communication will go through my law office. You don't need to respond to anything yourself. That afternoon, I took down every photo of my mom's side of the family, from the hallway. Christmas, Thanksgiving, the kind of moments Kevin always ended up behind the camera for. I didn't burn or rip them, just placed them in a box labeled clearly, stored away, not for Lily. That evening, Marcus called from the Louisville airport to say he'd be back by the weekend. You shouldn't have to deal with this alone, he said. Kevin wouldn't rest easy knowing that. I couldn't sleep that night. Every little noise in the house made me imagine my parents showing up, unannounced, knocking on the door. I lay closer to Lily than usual, listening to her steady breathing, her fingers still holding onto the dinosaur print blanket Kevin had given her, the last gift from him. By Friday, I got a call I didn't expect. From Aunt Barbara, my dad's sister-in-law, married to Uncle James. "Sarah," she said, hesitating a little, "could I see you for a moment?" "Just me. I want to say something. I'm not speaking for anyone else, just myself." I agreed. We met at a small coffee shop on Spring Street, Kevin's favorite weekend spot because of what he used to call solid waffles and strong Wi-Fi. Barbara was already there, cappuccino in hand, no lipstick. When I walked in, she stood slowly, like afraid I'd leave. "I'm not here to defend anyone," she said right away. "That meeting? I didn't know what it was going to be. I thought it was just a memorial." James was caught off guard, too. "Truly!" I didn't respond. Barbara looked straight at me, her eyes filled with worry. "Brad said Kevin might have done something unclear, that Lily could end up getting hurt, but when I heard her read that I knew. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about people." I sat down, nodded lightly. Maybe I needed to hear that, not because I was ready to forgive, but because I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. If you've ever been silenced because no one believed you, or blamed just for speaking the truth, leave a comment. Share this story if you know someone who might need to hear it. The next day, Marcus came back, 2 suitcases and a silver canvas bag in hand, the one Kevin used to take camping. "You need someone watching your back," Marcus said as he set the bags down. "And Lily needs a chess partner." She ran down the stairs and hugged him so tightly he nearly lost balance. He hugged her back, whispered something I couldn't hear. But when Lily nodded, eyes bright, I knew a part of our home had warmed up again. On Sunday, Thomas emailed me a copy of the official response letter. The final line read, "All assets were transferred in accordance with legal documentation, valid will, and insurance terms. Any attempt to interfere or issue unfounded legal threats will be documented and preserved for future legal proceedings." I read it, printed it, and filed it under Kevin's folder, new tab labeled Estate Protection. And I knew, from this point forward, every step would be watched. But some steps would be taken with company. Because that Monday I got a new message, not from my parents, but from Sophia. The first line said, "I've been rethinking everything." I read it while standing in the laundry room, Lily's wool sweater still warm in my hands from the dryer. The first sentence was short, "I've been rethinking everything." But the rest was unexpectedly long, not like my sister's usual tone. I know I was wrong. I was cold at the funeral. And I won't deny I thought about the insurance money. I'm not making excuses. I just want to explain. I felt lost. Because I always felt like I came second to you. When Kevin died and everyone turned toward you, I felt invisible. And instead of processing that, I chose the worst route. I sided with Mom and Dad. "If you're willing, we could meet. I'm not expecting forgiveness, but if you'd be willing to just hear me out, I'd appreciate it." I read it twice, no flowery words, no pressure. It actually felt real. That night, I told Marcus while he stirred leftover stew on the stove. He added a splash of wine to the pot, letting the aroma drift across our small kitchen. "She actually wrote that?" he asked, glancing back over his shoulder. "Yeah, no demands, no mention of money." Marcus nodded. "Could be a beginning." I smiled faintly. "Or just a better disguised trap." "Maybe," he shrugged. "But if you don't meet her, you won't know." I thought about it all night. Then, the next morning, once Lily left with Marcus for her art class, I texted Sophia. Thursday, 4 p.m., the old cafe near campus. The place I picked was Willow Brew, the coffee shop where Sophia and I used to study back in college. Still smelled like old wood and played soft indie music. I sat in the back, by the window. Sophia arrived right on time. Light makeup, hair tied up, a dark sweater. Nothing like the designer stuff on her Instagram. "Thanks for coming," Sophia said as she sat down. I nodded, stirring my coffee without drinking it. She was quiet for a moment, then opened her bag and pulled out a stack of papers. Not legal files, but printed notebook pages, handwritten notes mixed with doodles. I recognized her handwriting. Small, slanted, often missing punctuation. "I've been in therapy for the past 3 weeks," she said. "My therapist suggested writing out how I felt growing up. So I did. There are a few pages I'd like you to read." I took them. The top page read, "Sarah, the one who always seemed okay, while I was allowed to fall apart." I looked up. Sophia gave a sad smile. "We may not share the same memories, but I'm starting to understand why you couldn't keep carrying it." I set the papers down. "Do you really understand, or are you just scared you're losing everything and trying to pivot?" "Both," she answered, direct. "I've lost credibility with my friends, lost face in the family. But the worst part? I can't look Lily in the eye without feeling ashamed." I took a breath. Forgiveness doesn't come easy. But a part of me, the one Kevin used to call stubborn but soft-hearted, wanted to give her a chance. "Lily doesn't need you to feel ashamed," I said. "She needs an adult who'll actually listen." Sophia nodded. "I'm ready to be that person." I hadn't decided whether to believe her yet, but when we left the cafe and waited at the crosswalk, I noticed her pulling up her collar against the wind, the same way Kevin used to do. Sometimes, the smallest things chip away at the walls you've built. That night I told Lily. She sat curled up on the couch, knees pulled in. "I want to see her," Lily said. "Not because I forgive her, but because I want to know if she's actually changed." I nodded, gently squeezing her shoulder. "Then I'll make it happen." 2 days later, I got an email from Lily's school. Her teacher wanted to meet regarding a special piece of writing in language arts. I didn't expect it would be Lily who'd write the thing that made me realize I still had a lot to relearn about facing the truth. That Friday, when I stepped into the small conference room next to the main office at Magnolia Ridge Elementary, Lily's third-grade language arts teacher was already seated. On the table was a stack of printed pages, clipped together with a green binder clip. Her eyes were gentle, but cautious, like she was about to hand over something fragile. "Thank you for coming, Serafina," she said, motioning to the chair. "This isn't serious, but I thought you should read it before it goes up on the class board." I sat down and took the stack. Scrawled in large pencil letters at the top, essay, "The person I trust most." I wasn't sure what I expected, but I definitely didn't think it would begin like this. "The person I trust most is my dad. He's not alive anymore, but I still trust him. I trust he'd never let me feel alone. I trust he told my mom to protect me. I trust he got everything ready, even for when he wouldn't be here." I kept reading to the second paragraph, where Lily wrote about the love invoice she came up with on her own, that she felt she didn't need to collect anything from people who never gave her anything. She ended with a line that made my chest tighten. "If someone asked me what I want to keep from my dad, I'd say, the way he did everything out of love, not out of duty." I folded the paper and let my hand cover the last line for a long moment. "Whether or not you want this displayed is totally up to you," Miss Jennings said gently. "I think it's powerful, but I also understand it might not be the right time." I looked at her and nodded. I think it should go up. If Lily was brave enough to write it, then she's ready for others to read it. That afternoon, I sat in the car rereading an email from my mother. She'd sent it from her old address, her first message in over a month. The opening line was, "A thank you for letting Sophia meet with Lily the week before. I'm not asking for anything, but I wanted to know if I could see her. Just once. Somewhere public, with you there too. Not to say anything. Just so Lily knows I'm still here." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I pulled out Kevin's letter, the one I'd saved since I found it in the binder he left, and reread the part where he mentioned how my father had once asked for money to invest in the family. He didn't judge. He wasn't bitter. He just noted it down, like someone who knew to plan ahead. I called Thomas, our attorney, and asked him to recheck all accounts tied to Lily's trust to ensure there were no unauthorized access attempts. So far, everything is completely secure, he said, and if anything changes, even a single inquiry from outside, I'll know within minutes. That gave me some peace. But my mind kept circling back to my mother's request. That night, I sat next to Lily on the living room floor. She was drawing with oil pastels on a piece of cardboard, a hill, a sun, and a cat. I told her about the message from her grandma. She wants to see you for a moment, I said. In public. I'd be with you. Lily didn't say anything. She just added more rays to the sun before replying. Does she really miss me, or is she just scared of being forgotten? I leaned my head back against the couch, eyes on the ceiling. Maybe both, I said, but I think you get to choose if you want to see her. Millie stayed quiet, then nodded. I'll go. But if I don't see anything different, I don't want to go again. That Saturday, I arranged to meet my mother at the small park near the public library. We picked a bench near the koi pond. My mother arrived on time, wearing a charcoal wool coat, no purse, unusual for her. Lily stood beside me. When my mother bent down to speak, Lily didn't step back or move forward. She just looked straight at her and said, "If you want me to call you Grandma, you have to do something to earn that name." There was no bitterness in her voice, no tears, just truth. My mother froze, then nodded. I understand. The meeting lasted less than 10 minutes. No one cried. No one raised their voice. But when we got home, Lily placed her notebook on the table and said, I think I want to keep writing that essay. Add a part called If Someone Really Listened to Me. I looked at her, then pulled a blank page from my own notepad and placed it on the table. Write it, sweetie, I said. I'll write mine too. I don't know if those pages will mend anything, but I do know they'll help us begin again, on our own terms. Because the next morning, someone I thought had chosen silence forever left a handwritten letter in my mailbox, and the name at the end made me sit down on the porch steps. Sunday morning, the air was crisper than usual. I brewed 2 cups of chamomile tea, set one by the window, and opened the envelope. Still sealed, no return address. Only one line on the front. To Serafina, from someone who was late for too long. The handwriting slanted slightly, the kind of penmanship drilled into you in the 60s. I sat in the wooden chair and unfolded it. If you're reading this letter, then maybe your mother is no longer able to do things her way. Maybe she's let you down, maybe more than once, but you've never made me feel ashamed, and now I'm finally calm enough to admit I was wrong. I should have stayed. I should have fought her on that decision. I paused there. The morning breeze stirred the curtain. I pulled my knees up, chin resting on them, and kept reading. The day I left, I thought I was saving what was left of myself, but really, I left you with people who weren't strong enough to protect you. You once asked, do you love me more or justice? The answer is, I never chose. But by not choosing, I chose anyway, and that was the mistake. I heard Lily call from the kitchen, but her voice softened when she saw me sitting quietly. I folded the letter and placed it in a book on the high shelf, where I keep things I'm not ready to speak aloud. My father, silent for over 20 years, had written me a letter with no excuses, no explanations, no blame. Just admission. I washed dishes quietly, drying each glass with a cloth embroidered with purple daisies, a birthday gift from Kevin back when he was in law school. That afternoon, while Lily was at art class, I drove to the little cemetery on the hill near Montclair. My father isn't buried there, but Kevin is. I stood at his grave. I don't know if you ever got to read what my dad wrote, I said, brushing the smooth white stone. But if you had, you'd understand why I didn't cry when I read it. I left another letter, one I'd written for myself, under a rock beside the grave. Then I called Thomas. I'm ready for phase 2, I said. The housing contract, the scholarship, everything you asked me about. I want to reorganize it all. But I also want one more thing. What is it? And I want to write a humanitarian clause, a small portion of the fund for single parents who've been cut off by their own parents. Thomas was quiet for a few seconds. Then he gave a soft laugh. I'll check with the legal team, but that's an idea worth pursuing. I ended the call. On the way home, I stopped by the old bakery where Lily used to love picking macarons by color. I bought two, one lemon yellow, one sky blue, then sat in the car, watching the sunlight spill through the windshield. Outside, people were lining up for almond croissants. A family of three, a mom, a dad, and a son, was sharing a cup of hot cocoa. I didn't feel jealous, just quietly softened. Because I knew family isn't always where you're born, it's where you choose to stay. And I was building a place like that in my own way. A few days later, I got an email from Sophia, short and direct. I want to ask you something, but I need to meet, just us. I stared at the line, then hit reply. I'll be there, Saturday, Central Library, third floor reading table. I hit send, then leaned back in my chair. I wasn't sure where that conversation would go, but I knew it was time to hear the things no one had ever said out loud. Saturday mornings at the Central Library were always quieter than usual. The third floor had only a few older folks reading newspapers and one girl with pale blonde hair highlighting a textbook in orange. I sat at the corner table by the window, where the natural light was just enough to skip the desk lamp. Sophia arrived on time. No makeup, an old hoodie, and faded jeans. She sat down and looked at me like she'd been weighing something in her head for a long time. Can I ask you a question? I nodded, hands still wrapped around my tea. If someone says they did something bad because they thought it was to protect the family, would you believe them? I didn't answer right away. I thought of my mother, of the way she used to look at me, with pride, but also distance. Believe? No, I said slowly. Understand? Maybe. Sophia looked down at the notebook in front of her, wrote a line, and pushed it toward me. I'm sorry. For everything my mom said about you, for what she told me to believe. I read the words, then looked up. You don't need to apologize for someone else. But if that's something you needed to say, then I hear you. Sophia smiled, the hesitation still showing. I think I just needed permission to change my mind. And you have that right. We talked for about half an hour, not to fix anything huge, just to let her know she didn't have to stay rooted in a place that made her feel small. After Sophia left, I sat a while longer, jotted down a few new ideas for the scholarship fund Thomas and I were building, a mentorship program for students without family support. That afternoon, I walked home. Across the street, Lily was drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. Giant, oversized flowers with italic letters in the middle. Start where you are. I called her in for dinner. After we ate, we picked photos for the cover of the fund's first report, and Lily insisted on the one where I was laughing in the sunlight behind the university lawn. That one doesn't fit, I objected. But you look free in it, she said, then looked up and winked. People need to see that. I was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but I get to pick the font. After she went to bed, I opened my email. One message from Thomas. Serafina, you'll need to prepare a speech for the fund launch. Keep it real, keep it you. That's the only way it'll mean anything. I opened a blank document and started typing. I wrote about the rooms I'd been asked to leave, about the half-hearted hugs, the averted eyes, the congratulations that never came, but also about the hands that reached out, sometimes from strangers, that helped me balance just long enough to stand. And I ended with this line. We don't get to choose where we're born, but we do get to choose not to continue what once hurt us. I saved the file, then turned off the light and stood by the window. Rain was falling softly, reflecting the city's golden lights across the wet pavement. I knew tomorrow wouldn't be easy, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Because my daughter is growing up in a world where she knows stepping back doesn't mean losing, and love never has to mean surrender. I don't know where you're listening from, in the car, before bed, or on a day you just need a story to remind you to get back up. Tell me where you're listening from. And if you want to hear more real journeys like this, don't forget to follow the channel because the next story might be the one you've been needing. Serafina's story isn't just about betrayal or a broken family, it's about reclaiming self worth after years of quiet wounds. In real life, many of us grow up inside relationships built on expectations, control, and imbalance. But like Serafina, each of us has the right to set new boundaries, rebuild, and heal in our own way. Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, it's about allowing ourselves to move forward without carrying the weight of someone else's failure.